Hello and welcome to the Pages to Pixels podcast, where we review new movies every week. I'm Rohan.
I'm Keerthana.
And today we're going to be talking about MoviePass, MovieCrash, a new documentary on Max about the whole MoviePass fiasco. Essentially, the movie is exploring the company founding and the implosion of the business by outside investors who took over the company, left it bankrupt and under investigation. Okay, the grammar on that is
just as messed up as the company's history.
Yeah.
What did you think? What'd you think of the whole doc?
I think it was cool. It is funny because I felt like I kind of relived that whole thing. I remember hearing about MoviePass like way back when it was $40, and I was like, "That's cool, but it's $40," and I don't know if I feel like that was just too much for me. I was one of those people. The moment they announced it was going down to $10, I signed up.
Oh.
Or I tried. But I want to say like within that first day or two, I was able to sign up. My card didn't arrive till like months down the line. And when it did, I remember being like, dang, this is cool, because I tried it. I went to a movie theater, and basically you go on the app, you check in at the theater, you say like, hey, this is a movie I'm going to watch. And then the card is loaded with that exact amount, whatever the ticket price would be. And yep, you scan, or you use that card to pay for your ticket, and you're in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, I mean, when this whole thing was happening in real time, I was not even in this side of the globe, but I heard about it. Like, it was big enough that, like, the news made it all the way to India, where they were.
Right.
And I was like, this is so cool. Like, I wish we had something like this. Was this before the AMC A-list became a thing?
Yes.
Okay.
AMC A-list did not exist at the time. It was really, I think there was another one in Canada that happened first. That happened before MoviePass. I don't remember what it's called, but it was MoviePass, and then I remember another service called Cinemia came out, which was kind of similar. But I believe that they probably went the smarter route because they had a little bit of a higher price point, and they limited the amount of movies. Well, MoviePass, it was you can go once every day. Cinemia was kind of like, okay, you can go 3 movies a week, or if you upgrade, you can go 4 movies, stuff like that.
Just for a little context, so basically MoviePass was like a ticketing service of sorts? With a subscription model?
Kind of. It wasn't necessarily a ticketing service because you couldn't actually buy your tickets through the app.
Oh.
Yes. I mean, you would go there, and you actually had to be within a certain radius. I think it was like 100 meters of the theater.
Okay.
So you couldn't activate it from home. That was one big drawback, is a lot of theaters had assigned seating, so you couldn't take advantage of that. You had to actually physically be at the theater. And I remember sometimes when there was, I think Black Panther was one, where I was like, okay, I know that this movie is going to be packed. So I drove to the theater early in the day, bought my ticket there, and then went home, and then came back to the theater at night when I went to watch it.
That's a lot of dedication to use the offer on this pass.
Yeah, I mean, well, at my local theater, I think if I had not done that, it would have been $18 for the ticket.
Oh, wow.
Well, versus paying $10 a month.
Yeah, no, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
So basically, MoviePass, they would send you a card, and you take the card. It worked weirdly like a debit card.
Basically, exactly. Yeah. Actually, it was just a MasterCard.
And then they basically loaded your card with money, I guess.
Yep.
And then you would go to theaters and exchange that for tickets. AMC does something similar. They don't have a card. If you sign up for their subscription service today, you can watch up to 3 movies a week. Yeah. I can see how this works, but MoviePass didn't, because you require the theaters to be on board for a service like this to work.
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole thing. As soon as that offer came out, like $40 makes sense, because if I were to sign up for the $40 one, even though I watch a lot of movies, I don't think I'm going to go to a ton of movies. I maybe go once every 2 weeks.
Right.
So I think $40 they would probably be making money off of me, and then I probably go to more movies than most people do, so they're probably making even more money off of other users.
Right.
With $10, I had to go to 1 movie a month, and now I am saving money.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I can see how the business model was very flawed.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also do think so. I mean, I know we're going to talk about the doc, but before jumping in, I think one thing that separates A-list is the fact that it is AMC themselves.
Right.
AMC basically tells you, like, hey, you can go to 3 movies a week at our theater, and only our theater. And then so you go there, and then what do? You usually end up buying concessions, or it's when I went to watch Monkey Man, it was a group of 6 of us.
Right.
I was the only one who had A-list. Now
Right.
I could go to AMC, or there's a Harkins nearby as well, roughly the same distance.
Right.
And
Because you had
because I had
A-list,
AMC,
yeah.
I told everyone, hey, let's go to AMC.
Right.
So I brought in those 5 with me. So even though if they're not making money off of me directly, they're making money off of them.
Yeah.
So not only are they bringing more people, but it's, I'm also spending money on their concessions, which is really how they make money. MoviePass didn't have anything like that, so they weren't making much money.
I also think just because we're on the AMC thing, it's very smart because they give any A-list members a free upgrade.
Yep.
So even if you don't really care for a popcorn or whatever, you're just gonna go get the thing for the free upgrade. So they end up selling you at least, like, when you step in, it's very unlikely that you won't spend any money.
And that's kind of that's really their bread and butter. They're not in the movie business. They're in the concession business. What did you think of the doc?
I thought structurally it was very, very cookie cutter. They start with telling you how this thing came to be. They do the inspirational music. They talk about their hopes and dreams and how they made it a success. And then they throw in an antagonist.
Yep.
And then what I like to call plot complications, where they were talking about how AMC said no. Basically external factors that are going to affect these people's journey. And then, of course, we see the downfall. So it was a very cookie cutter story. I thought it was very interesting because, like, as people, I feel like the founders were quite charismatic.
Yep.
I thought that their passion was visible, so it kind of, I wanted to go on the journey and figure out what happened in their stories. Because like I said, when this whole thing was happening, I was not here in the country. I did hear about something called MoviePass, but then we never heard about what happened with the whole thing. I only found out through this documentary that it just basically crashed and burned. So,
Have you ever watched any other HBO docs?
No. I've watched a bunch of Netflix docs.
The reason I bring that up is because I've seen a bunch of HBO ones, and they kind of do have this format. I remember, I think the one that I watched was Q Into the Storm, which is about QAnon, and then it was leading up to the whole January 6th attempted insurrection.
Yeah.
And even that one was actually multiple episodes as opposed to a single doc. It even feels like, I even feel like the narrator has like a similar voice, and they like to have the little motion graphics, the cutaways to, it's not even B-roll footage, because B-roll footage would be what they would shot, almost like stock footage, like people celebrating all that, or people crying.
Yeah, at one of my internships, I was studying docs and how they structure those. And I feel like it's the same thing with film structure, as in, once you find out how they're usually put together, it's kind of like demystifies the whole thing, and it's super easy to see through all of it. That being said, I thought the narrative was very engaging, especially when they started building the antagonist.
They have a formula, and the formula works. And I remember, even though this is something that I follow closely, I was a user, there was still a lot of stuff in this doc that I didn't know of. For example, I had always heard is it Mitch Lowe? I believe that's his name.
Yeah, Ted and Mitch.
Yeah, Ted and Mitch. I had always heard that, oh yeah, they were the founders. I didn't even know that there was 2 actual founders, that the company was basically usurped from.
That was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's also not new. It happens a lot, especially with people of color. But, this one was heartbreaking. But again, for context, there were 2 original founders, Stacy and Heyman, who were both very passionate about what they were doing, and they built the company from ground up. And then eventually one of their key investors brought on 2 other people who basically took over the company throughout the 2 original founders, and then basically ran it through the ground. That was a heartbreaking scene, for sure. First, they tell you what the stakes are for the 2 original founders, and then they tell you what starts to go wrong. And then they introduce the antagonist as just a small hurdle to jump over.
Yeah.
And then they just start upping the stakes on their involvement. When they finally did come to the scene where Stacy was removed from the company, they did the thing where they cut to the guy who actually threw him out.
Yeah.
They cut to one of his bites, which I thought was interesting. I actually was not expecting that perspective there at all.
I'm actually kind of surprised that Mitch Lowe even agreed to be one of the talking heads for this documentary.
Do you think it just shows that he feels no remorse? That's kind of how it felt.
I guess, but it is very hard to say, because I think if he really didn't care, he would have probably not shown up at all. I mean, if he got like paid a ton
Yeah.
to do this, then that would
Yeah.
that would kind of suck. You took this awesome product, drove it into the ground, and then you're still getting paid because you're starring in the documentary about it. I mean, he's the number one billed guy on IMDb.
Oof.
But it's hard for me to make that judgment call because I wasn't there in the room. I haven't in the actual interview room or the editing room.
Right.
I wonder how much didn't make the final cut. I know that the editing can manipulate a lot. So can things like music. So it's hard for me to really say that this guy had no remorse.
True. I did feel like they over-edited in a few places, especially when they went to the Coachella segment of the story. The company spent a couple of $1 million on making an appearance at Coachella for no reason, but it was one of their largest expenses. And when the filmmakers put that part together, they really used high resolution, like flash photography shots and made it look like people were going out and partying. And I mean, it was effective, but you could tell how they definitely used editing to sort of up the stakes.
It's not one of those where you're going to be thinking about it necessarily. It is it's one-dimensional, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
This is how they messed up. This was the repercussion.
Not that I didn't enjoy it. Again, they prioritized fun overall else. And it is a very, very entertaining documentary to watch.
Yeah. I mean, there was obviously some amount of writing involved.
Yeah.
Some amount of scripting. I thought the characters popped. There was not one single talking head that came on where I was ready to move past the person. It was structured very well, so you could keep track of the story, and despite the different perspectives.
Yeah, I particularly loved how some of them were just, this guy was just a user.
Yeah.
It's not, he wasn't involved in marketing or an executive. No, he just had.
Yeah, and he was I'll do it
for a bit.
Yeah.
I'm damn, he didn't come to me.
There was the people that felt a lot of the impact were the users also.
Yep.
Because one of the other key big problems that they were discussing was how they were completely ill-equipped to handle the numbers that they were doing.
Yeah, when I first got it, I was like, there's no way this is sustainable, but I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts. And I remember, in particular, there was one time where there was that Jennifer Lawrence movie, I think Red Sparrow is what it's called. It came out, but there was another movie that was coming out on the same weekend, competing with it. And that movie, you open MoviePass, you get an ad for that movie, which, okay, that's fine. But if you went to watch Red Sparrow in theaters, sorry, this movie's been blocked.
Oh.
Because they were taking money from the other movie.
Yeah.
I remember the whole AMC debacle, because I actually think this movie could have gone more into that, because AMC was never a fan of this. As soon as MoviePass announced $10, AMC immediately came out and be like, yeah, we're not going to, we don't like this. The thing was, they tried to ban it, but how are you going to ban it? Because at the end of the day, in your system, it just shows up as a MasterCard.
Right.
Unless you just ban all MasterCards.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So, but what MoviePass really did was, hey, you got to give us a cut of your concession sales. And if you don't, we are going to ban AMC from our...
Oh, got it.
And AMC, I think they kind of laughed in their faces. But then they created A-List.
Yeah.
I don't think A-List would have happened if it
without
weren't for
MoviePass. Yeah. It feels like such an interesting power struggle.
Yeah.
Because AMC is the largest theater chain in the country.
Yeah.
So I can see how they felt like they had all the cards in their hands. But also, if you're going to offer someone at $9 unlimited movies, I can see how that also gives MoviePass significant power. I can totally see how those meetings might have been very entertaining to watch.
The documentary talked about Mission Impossible. I remember that was kind of the weekend MoviePass ran out of money, because you try to use it, nope, not working.
What was their revenue model? Because there's no way they thought that was sustainable.
I think they were banking on theater chains giving them a cut of concessions, as well as data.
On data?
Yeah.
And then what, they were gonna sell it?
Yep.
I know they talked about it a bunch, but
yeah.
I didn't understand how that would be enough.
It's a tough one, because at the end of the day, companies like Twitter and Facebook, they still make a ton of money when their product is free, but also I guess they're not actively hemorrhaging a ton of money.
Yeah, my question was, for example, let's assume that their business model is that they're going to sell data.
Yeah.
who is it relevant to? I'm guessing to studios, right?
Yep.
And it would be relevant every month? Like, I don't think so. I feel
Probably
like it's
not, I guess.
yeah.
And the example that they even say in the documentary is like, hey, if you watched Batman, Warner Brothers knows like how many people watch Batman, but they don't necessarily know who exactly is watching Batman. So I guess it would make it a targeted approach. Again, you go back to, okay, why can't they get this data from the movie theaters?
Right.
The
This
theaters
was
can
really
do the
just a
same
middle,
thing.
but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for example, that is one concern which I understand. The second one that I was thinking about was if I was a studio, like, let's say I got the metrics on Barbie, and then and it's going to cost them quite a lot of money going by the fact that MoviePass was counting on this to make their money back.
Yeah.
Like, how many times can I afford to make that choice for data? Like, how many times can I afford to shell out thousands of dollars for some data? And I feel like you're right. Like right from the get-go, it was very clear that it seemed short-lived.
Yeah, and the original founders, Stacy, I think there was a moment where he even said $15 for 2 movies a month.
Yeah.
Which that is an awesome deal. I would have gotten that one also.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean that sounds like a smarter thing to do at least than what they offered. They did talk about how the company was hemorrhaging money like month on month. It wasn't great even when the original founders were there. They were still losing about $800,000 a month.
Yeah.
It just ran into the millions after the new guys came on board.
All right, so it's time for ratings. As a reminder, we do our rating on the script coverage scale, which is pass if we don't like the movie, consider if we think it's pretty good, and recommend if we think it's great. As a reminder, this is not an actual recommendation; it's just a grade. All right, so what would you give MoviePass, MovieCrash?
I would say consider because it's such a well-known subject matter. Like everybody, I feel like it was popular enough that the story made it across the globe. So it feels like a pretty safe bet.
I'm going to give it a weak recommend. It is cookie cutter and the doc could have been improved. Had it added a little bit more nuance. Maybe if it asks a little bit more questions instead of just painting a straightforward narrative. That said, yeah, it was a ton of fun. Again, HBO Max, I'm going to call it HBO. They have a certain formula. There's a reason why that formula exists. It's because it's super entertaining.
I like how they spent millions of dollars to rebrand their thing as as Max from HBO Max, and you're just like, screw that, I'm just gonna say HBO.
Yeah, I mean, I say Twitter, I ain't saying X. All right, so time for recommendations. Each week we like to recommend a movie that you might like that is similar to the movie we just talked about. So I'll go first since you did your rating first. I think I'm going to recommend The Founder because it is not a documentary. It's a feature film about Ray Kroc, who is credited with founding McDonald's. But again, if you watch the movie, you will know that no, he was not the actual founder. He he stole it from 2 other guys. Unlike MoviePass, McDonald's ended up becoming extremely successful. It still is. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see this similar structure, but this time in a dramatized format as opposed to a documentary.
I have heard about it. I haven't watched the film, but I've heard about it from multiple sources. I will recommend this Netflix series. It's a docu-series. It's a 3-part anthology series. Each of them, they're documentaries. It's called Bad Boy Billionaires on Netflix. It covers the story of 3 billionaires in India, all of whom built massive empires and lost it all. It was very interesting to watch, especially having grown up with these figures being paraded basically around me. That being said, has there been anything else that you've been watching that you like?
I have. I finally saw Godzilla -1. Great
movie.
Made me hate Godzilla X Kong even more. What I've really been watching more is the NBA Finals.
Of course.
My Mavs are down 0-2, but I'm hoping that they make a comeback and fuck Boston.
Wait, Mavs is Texas?
Yes.
That's the Mark Cuban one?
Yes.
Okay, see? I'm getting into American culture, guys. I also watched another docu-series called The Romantics, which is also on Netflix. It's a documentary that kind of breaks down Indian cinema history, but with respect to Yash Raj films. It was a very interesting documentary. I don't understand how these filmmakers did it, but they basically got all of Bollywood to come and talk for this documentary.
Yeah,
and
nice.
Huh?
I said, damn, that's...
Yeah, no, they got Shah Rukh, just anyone you can think about, they're in that. It was very well made. The story was very interesting, and it's kind of nice to see It kind of gives you a good idea of like how the current version of Bollywood came to be, like what paved the way to get there. At the same time, it also tells you, some really cool behind the scenes stories of some of the best films that I've seen.
Nice.
So yeah, check it out on Netflix if you want to. That was this week's episode of the Pages to Pixels podcast. I'm Keerthana.
I'm Rohan.
And thank you so much for listening. Like, share, and subscribe if you like the content. And we will see you again next week.